Welcome to Fatlogic, where people complain about the Olympics because the people competing in the Olympics are athletic. This comes to us from Gabe. I don't know what the previous post to this was, but this is where it begins. I agree with some points of your post, but I couldn't care less about the Olympic Games. It's just fat phobia on steroids. A quadrennial member for athletes with bigger bodies to stigmatize them as less athletic and unworthy of opportunities. Fat folks are already taking on a lot of psychological and emotional labor just by showing up to a sport. Imagine if a fat person wants to take gymnastics classes. They turn on the TV, so they see what the sport's about, just to discover that only people with chiseled and slender bodies are taking part. That looks pretty discouraging, doesn't it? If you want fat people to get inspired or join a sport, then start by creating fat positivity spaces where barriers for larger individuals are taken down. You can do that by having size-inclusive clothing and gear available. I agree, those are completely good ideas. People shouldn't be excluded from exercising purely based on their size. And enacting community guidelines where everyone is prepared to shut down things like diet or weight loss talk. That's not so reasonable. A lot of people, I would say over 50%, believe that diet and weight loss talk isn't a big deal for the vast majority except for people with certain eating disorders. And no body shaming of ourselves and others. But I thought you already knew this. Someone replies, I completely agree. Let me add that I was watching the opening ceremony, and I realized there were only thin people performing the different choreographies and dances. They were diverse in some way, black, brown, Asian, etc., but not a single one of them were fat. Not even a small fat. All thin, muscular, skinny. Fat people can dance. Do they know? Here's the thing. A fat person can be the best dancer in the world. But a person who's a worse dancer, who is thinner, is going to be able to dance better because they have less weight to push around. That is, they have a better ratio of muscle to overall body weight. Somebody else. This completely spoils the idea of joyful movement if I can't move in a way that my body feels comfortable, and I can't get pleasure and enjoy the activity sport. Then, what's the point of it? I don't like powerlifting in many of the sports you recommend. I think your good-hearted, I guess, advice for fat people to try sports where we could excel at is reinforcing the belief that thin bodies will be better at certain sports. Delicate and graceful sports like gymnastics, figure skating, artistic swimming. What if I want to try one of these? Oh no, that's not for you, fatty. Better go to throw some heavy balls or lift weights. Know your place. Apparently, the original post, which is missing, is recommending that people who are fat do things like powerlifting and shot put, because in those competitions, weight is an advantage. But, come on, gymnastics? Figure skating? Of course having a lighter weight is going to help you do those things. Just imagine two people of equal strength trying to do the uneven bars. One is 200 pounds and one is 400 pounds. Painfully, obviously, the person who's 200 pounds is going to do better than the person who's carrying 200 more pounds of fat than the skinnier person. And, of course, people get chiseled doing gymnastics. It's hard work. It builds up your muscles a lot. I want to be a cave diver, replies. If a fat person wants to do gymnastics, then they'll quickly realize that physics doesn't care one jot what they want. The simple fact they're bigger is going to put them at significant physical disadvantage, place them at actual active risk of injury, or make it impossible for them to do some things. Gymnasts, and particularly the ones you'll see on TV, are small in both height and weight, because the nature of the sport requires it. Kangaroo replies to this part. Delicate and graceful sports like gymnastics, figure skating, artistic swimming. What if I want to try one of these? What's stopping you? There are hundreds of gymnastics, skating, swimming for beginners videos. And your local ice rink or swimming pool does not have a weight limit. You only need your floor for gymnastics. Start training today. Oh, right. You don't actually want to. You just want Simon Biles to weigh 300 pounds because it'll make you feel good about yourself without lifting a finger. Crad Tattoo brings us somebody else complaining about the Olympics. Anybody else get triggered while watching all these thin, athletic bodies in the Olympics? maybe I shouldn't watch, but I kinda enjoy the competition, even though I'm not into any other sports at all. This is a minor language thing. The word triggered does not mean bothered. It means that you start to have flashbacks when you see something. If you were watching the Olympics and started having flashbacks, you would stop watching the Olympics. It's not just a word you pull out every time something makes you feel a slight bit icky. Here's an article from 2022 about the same thing, the fat positive potential of sports. Brittany de la Cartas. Traditionally, sports media has used the Olympics as an occasion to highlight the body diversity of athletes, showcasing gymnasts next to basketball players, next to weightlifters, and framing the fact that some of the people pictured are Olympians as shocking. The most prolific example is ESPN, the magazine's annual The Body issue, where the diversity of athletic bodies was on full display. But the typical tone of these pieces, of surprise, and the fact that these stories are recycled for every Olympic Games, highlights the societal message about how bodily function within sport. Thin bodies are good at sports, fat bodies are unathletic. The article goes on, it does make some good points. It suggests, that everybody, despite their weight, should have access to the ability to exercise and clothes and things like that. But at the same time, just because you believe things should be reasonably fair, doesn't mean your brain should turn off and you should believe that a gymnast weighing 500 pounds is going to be anywhere near as agile as a gymnast weighing 150 or 200 pounds. It's simply a matter of physics. If you actually watch the Olympics and pay attention, you'll notice that for each specific event, there's a typical body that's best at that event. That's almost always not due to stigma or anything like that, but because of necessity. Crafty Sappho brings us. That time, a HAES Popo tried to launch an alcoholic beverage called Self-Love. Here's the advertisement. You are worthy of celebration. Self-Love Seltzer coming soon. Learn more. I found the webpage, which I believe this comes from. Self-Love Lemonade. Hydration is back and here to stay. Syrah Hydration. Self-Love Lemonade. Easiest way to show your body love. And they include on their page, warning, our product can expose you to chemicals including lead, which are known to the state of California to cause birth defects or other reproductive harm. Yikes. How about you make your lemonade in a factory that doesn't include lead? Is that asking so much? It's like, sure, you're fully hydrated, but you're dying of lead poisoning. Whoopsie. I believe this is a comment written by the creator of the product. I appreciate everything that you've been through, and understand why you're so passionate about this. I do want to clarify that a name of a brand is just that, a name. We chose it because it rolls off your tongue, along with myself, and the product itself has amounts of potassium and sodium to help with hydration, setting it apart from others. Does it really set it apart from others? They do know that Gatorade is available. You can buy it as a liquid or a powder, and it's in every grocery store. And Gatorade has competitors. It's not like they're getting into a market that's not already saturated. And the name? Come on. I'm not going to talk a lot about the name Self-Love because it's so obvious. But this product does not sound like a drink. Not at all. Anyway, they continue. You have no idea how my brand or this product will be marketed, or how I'm going to target my audience, or the messaging behind our brand, or how I'm going to advocate for those who choose not to drink. I guess they're talking about the alcoholic version. That, near as I can tell, is still not out. Probably for good reason, because it's a pain in the butt to mail alcoholic beverages. Anyway, they continue. There's no way to know any of that, because none of it has happened. Perhaps the fact that you don't know me is another reason that it's a little harder to have an open mind toward me, the brand, and this product. Please have all the conversations you want with them on Easter. Talking about overconsumption of alcohol is so important. It's a topic near and dear to me also, and one we won't be shying away from. My goal with my brand is to have people reach for my product over others because it's better, not prey on anyone's insecurities and telling them they need alcohol to cope, insinuating that I chose the name to do that. Before any of our brand's messaging has even been released, it's a bit unfair. That being said, our own experiences create biases for us, and it's very clear ours has been different, and that's okay. Invisible Space Vamp replies to all that. An alcoholic beverage that's marketed as helping with hydration, when in reality alcohol causes dehydration, you probably get a better effect if you just remove the vodka from your lemonade. To be fair, that is the only product they actually sell. The alcoholic product still isn't on the market. It's also funny that this person obviously tries to sell an unhealthy product by attaching a healthy claim to it, when the movement pretty much rejects the idea of healthy foods. It's not a bad design, though. Ito Keto replies also, "It's not fair to say this product preys on insecurities. You haven't seen the marketing yet. Or the rest of the product line. Liquid courage, big butt, popular, and big hot dog." Ice Poseidon brings us, "As someone who goes to the gym almost daily and eats better than I ever have, this is a biological event that happens within women. We are literally genetically wired to hold more weight during our second puberty, which brings women into full maturity, because the extra weight is meant to be in the case of a starvation period. While we might be holding a child, our genetics tell our bodies to hold more. You aren't a kid anymore, you're an adult, and it's a beautiful thing." So I looked up what second puberty is on Healthline. Here's what the article says. When most people think of puberty, the teenage years come to mind. This period, which generally happens between ages 8 and 14, is when you develop from a kid into an adult. Your body goes through many physical changes during this time. But after puberty, your body continues to change. This is a natural part of aging. These age-related changes are sometimes called second puberty. It's not an actual puberty, though. Second puberty is just a slang term that refers to the way your body changes in adulthood. The term can be misleading, since you don't actually go through another puberty after adolescence. So basically what the original person's saying is that once you get past the age of, 14, your body continuously gains weight, and you can't control it. While some weight gain is normal, if you're gaining 50 to 100 pounds after the age of 15, that's not just second puberty, that's you overeating. A hare without rabies replies, "I've mentioned it before, but stuff like this fed into my eating disorder more than Thinspo ever did. It's easier to discredit fellow sick people telling you, if you eat more than X, you'll get fat. But having a person of authority, parents, teachers, etc. tell you, I got fat even though I ate X calories because of genetics, and it'll happen to you too, isn't going to make you throw in the towel and go to recovery. It's going to make you double down and try twice as hard to make sure you never get to that point." This comes to us from Aggravating Seat. This is a bunch of first responders replying when asked if there's instances where people can't be rescued in a fire due to their weight. This and the next post get a little dark, so you might want to skip the next 5 minutes if you don't want to rehear that kind of thing. The first guy, "No, but just had helicopter training. There is a weight limit of 450, but that depends on the bird. There is also a waist limit because the rear loading bay of the Eurocopter is only so wide. The average to even plus-sized fatty is still going to fit, it's just the super big ones. If you're in a house, they're cutting the wall. They'll get you out one way or another." The next, "We won't just leave someone. Obese people, especially morbidly obese people who can't stand up from the floor without help, are a problem. There's a cost in time, manpower, and equipment that has to be paid for every action. Moving a person of average weight takes 2 people and a few moments. Moving a 600-pound person who fell in a doorway is going to take 7 or 8 people with straps, a mega mover, and a lot of time. If we have to make a door, involving demoing a brick facade and cutting through structural members, it's going to cost significant manpower, time, and equipment, which are resources that can no longer be used elsewhere." The fourth guy, "Not my call, but a town near me had to cut a hole in the wall with a chainsaw to get the patient out. There's always a way." The next guy seems to be the person the last guy was talking about. "I've had to cut a wall out of a house to remove an obese patient. They won't get left, but care will be delayed, and outcomes will probably be worse because of excessive weight." The seventh guy, "Nobody ever gets left. If they are viable, they always get removed. I was just part of a call 2 weeks ago where we had to extricate a 500-pound female after she fell in the bathroom. She fell in a way where her head went through the drywall and her legs were wedged under the toilet. We had to remove the toilet and cut the wall and door frame to get her out. Took over an hour, but we got her out. 8th guy. Not fire, EMS, but I have declared stopped interventions on cardiac arrest patients who were simply too large to resuscitate. The 10th guy. My EMS instructor told us a story about when they got called to help a patient who was pushing 800 pounds that was very, very sick. The person literally was too big to fit through their own bedroom door. They hadn't left their bed in a very long time, having family members bring them food and clean up after them. They were unable to get the patient out, and they had to leave them until an exit could be made. The patient died soon after, and they had to remove the bedroom's exterior wall to recover the body. The 11th guy. We do our best, but we can't always save them. The conditions have to be truly horrific for us to not get them out, though. There's one particularly large individual in our district, and we've pre-planned their house. They're bedridden, and if a fire ever happens at their house, we're taking that whole bedroom wall down from the outside and dragging them out. The 13th guy. We had a situation where EMS called us for help with an obese body that couldn't fit down the narrow stairway. They had died of a heart attack at 35. We had to remove the large double window on the second story and lower them down on a tarp. Mortuary services had to go get a personal truck to put the body in. It was the least dignified death scene I have witnessed. Nobody will ever be left behind, but they will have to wait for more resources and possibly die before specialized equipment gets on scene. You can't just leave them there. He adds, I've also seen funeral homes have to haul bodies in personal or FD pickups. You'd think there would be plus-sized hearses out there. And I had a 900-pound person that coded and died. We had to get a heavy wrecker with a crane and a sling for large animal rescues, and take them out with a crane after cutting the wall. Talk about undignified. The 14th guy. We are pretty used to moving patients up to around 500 pounds. Takes extra manpower, but we do it. Once you get north of that, you have to start thinking outside the box, up to and including cutting the side of the house off and using a flatbed trailer. We have not done this, but I've seen more than one article about it happening. Most we've done is use the city's payloader to get a deceased body out the second floor window of a house, when going down the stairs wasn't an option. The 17th guy. We had a 500-pound woman who was trapped in a multi-story apartment fire. She was unconscious when we found her, and badly burned, probably dead. We tried everything. 3 crews were unable to remove her. We tried a backboard, but the straps weren't big enough. And by the time we got her to a window, she was confirmed not breathing with no pulse. By that time we had fire at our backs and above us. We had to leave her until we got the fire knocked back. We ended up having to remove the wall under the window to remove her. One of the hardest things I ever had to do, and it still bothers me. I can't imagine the weight on the shoulders of the chief that had to make that call, but he wasn't about to risk the lives of 9 guys for a recovery. This all going on while an 8-unit apartment fire had half the units fully involved. Active searches going on with 1 child unaccounted for. The child was found safe and the search called off. If anything could be more messed up, this was the 2nd time she'd been rescued from a fire. Her son set both fires, and she was lucky to have lived through the first one. That time several guys were hurt pulling her and her equally obese husband out of a small house. They had the back door blocked with shelving, and the front of the house was fully involved. It was a nightmare both times. Had a 750-pound plus patient, female living in an 850 square feet shed apartment, weekly transferred due to her boredom. Patient would sit cross-legged on a queen-size mattress and touch all 4 corners. Sat there like Jabba the Hutt and passed waste in a custom hole her 130-pound hubby had cut in the center of the bed. The rodents and various fauna under the bed worshipped at that hole like it was a magical altar. She would brag she never had to empty the catchment system. She loved drinking poopy cheap vodka and peach sweet tea 50-50 and chain-smoked American spirit cigarettes, often only burning half and then tossing it in the general direction of a coffee can. One day there was a fire. On arrival, there were rivulets of melted burning fat running down the driveway like something from the Lord of the Rings. It smelled exactly like cooking cheap bacon in one of those magic microwave cookers. At least she died doing what she loved? aggravating seat brings us something about graves. Hi, funeral director here. Bodies that big don't even embalm well, and if they want her buried, the casket costs twice as much. The oversized grave liner costs twice as much. And they usually need 2 graves to hold them. We once had someone who was about 500 pounds. He needed an oversized cremation container, 5 people to push him from the van to the crematory mechanical lift, and it costs way more because it's dangerous and it takes way longer. We could normally cremate several bodies over the course of a shift, but he took all day. And then he needed multiple urns. Had a 400-pound guy, not fit on the embalming table or in a body bag. Got a call about a 600-pounder who died out of state, and we couldn't help the family because they couldn't afford the cost of transporting his body back home for burial. Altogether, the bill from the place who does the removal and embalming, the transport company, our service fees, the oversized everything, and the double graves would have come to tens of thousands of dollars. They had to have him cremated where they were. And I've had families be so in denial about how big their loved one was that they brought in clothes for them that were literally 10 sizes too small. It's so sad. I also know funeral directors who've wound up with hernias and assorted other injuries from moving large bodies like that. So yeah, I'm fatphobic. I'm sick of having to give their families bad news and making their loss worse. And I'm sick of people I care about winding up in the hospital because of those same bodies. This is about a donkey owner in Wales. Seaside donkey owner is weighing kids to stop obese children injuring his animals. Seaside donkey proprietor John Nuttall has sparked debate by insisting children undergo a weight check before being allowed to ride his donkeys in Skegness. The 61-year-old had faced criticism for allegedly fat-shaming youngsters, yet many are applauding his decision. But Catherine Jenner, director of Obesity Health Alliance, believed it was completely unacceptable to weigh a child in public and then say they can't go on a ride. Baba Ganoush replies, "Okay, that's fine, Catherine Jenner. I guess injuring a donkey is more important and acceptable in that moment." Manny Turnover also replies, "The stables I went to as a child had a scale next to the pony mount. Everyone was super excited for the day they were too big for a pony and got to ride Mr. Handsome, a massive black Shire horse that had magical long wavy mane like the horse version of Fabio. Best consolation prize in the world." Dill the Flash gives an opposing opinion. "A lack of empathy people have around this kind of thing is staggering. Everyone saying if you don't like it, just lose weight seems to be forgetting that these are children. It's not their fault if they're overweight. They're children. Have a heart." Also, the guy giving donkey rides on the beach is probably not the animal welfare champion everyone seems to be making out. Sigma replies, "It may not be their fault, but it does mean, however, that there are things they can't do that other kids can. Same as the unfortunate short kid who can't ride the roller coaster, or my fat adult butt can't ride a horse." And about the guy not being an animal welfare champion, he's doing at least one good thing, so he can have credit for that, till there's a reason otherwise. Gaber brings us the body hierarchy. The body hierarchy. I've been asked a lot about the body hierarchy, so let's talk about it. Hierarchy is a system in which members of an organization or society are ranked according to relative status or authority. Is a formalized or simply implied understanding of who's on top and what's most important. I'm not really sure why they felt the need to define that word that I would guess the vast majority of people know roughly what it means, at least among English speakers. They continue. Body hierarchy is built on the belief that there's a right or wrong way to have a body. It implies that certain bodies, fit, are more valuable than others, fat, and as a result they enjoy social privileges and benefits based on their superior bodies. So what is sustaining this hierarchy? In order to answer this question, we've got to really be willing to ask ourselves some deep, self-reflective questions. Do you believe that people pursue fit bodies as an act of self-love? One of the things that I ask people to ask themselves as they're trying to gauge whether or not their behaviors and active radical self-love is a system of bodily hierarchy. Am I changing my body in ways that the system will reward me for? And generally, if we are trying to be rewarded in an unjust, violent, hierarchical system, we're not operating from radical self-love. We're operating within a system of oppression. But it's less about what I believe, and it's more about asking people to really be honest with themselves about the motivation behind such decisions. Are you really going on a diet because it will be better for your health? Or it's because you think you will become slimmer and thus receive less hate and discrimination than your fatter counterparts. Are you really hitting the gym because you want to become stronger? Or it's because a fit person bullied and mocked you, and you want to step up a bit higher on the ladder by gaining some muscle? As long as we live in an oppressive society that institutes shame, stigma, and trauma on bodies based on a system of bodily hierarchy, we will always be challenged in our relationship with our bodies. Remember, the system of the ladder of bodily hierarchy requires people to be below you. It necessitates there being people below you, and it relies on you not to question it and not to disrupt it. It relies on you to continue to look at the ways in which you constantly are trying to ascend the ladder. How do we stop the bodily hierarchy? The only way to dismantle the ladder of bodily hierarchy is to stop trying to climb it. You can start noticing the bodies below, low on the ladder. You can start raising the bodies below you on the ladder above you. You can begin to censor that which has been marginalized. You can begin to invite that which has been uninvited. All bodies are worthy. Body image wouldn't exist without body hierarchy. It's better to accept ourselves as we are, instead of trying to force our bodies in ways that can affect our mental health. Let's collapse the system and create a kind, compassionate, just world for every body. Be a rebel. While I couldn't track down this post specifically, I did find one influencer named Tanya Mark, who had a website called Subvert the Body Hierarchy. Specifically, she has lines in her essay that are exactly the same as in this post. I'm not sure if she's the creator of the post or someone ripped her off. For example, this line, body hierarchy is built on the beliefs that there's a right and wrong way to have a body, such as thin bodies are better than fat bodies. Alright, let's look at what Tanya Mark looks like on her Instagram. Okay, first, she's thin. Second, she's blonde. But from the looks of the part in her hair, she's not naturally blonde, so she's probably dyeing her hair blonde. Which is a really weird thing for somebody who believes all appearances are the same to do. She also looks in this picture to be wearing makeup. That doesn't make sense with that essay I just read. Also, she seems to have blue eyes. So she's blonde, or at least bleaching her hair blonde, has blue eyes, skinny, and white. And she's telling people that appearances don't matter. It seems like blonde, skinny, blue-eyed white people are at the top of the bodily hierarchy, aren't they? It's a little rich that she's going on about how you shouldn't care about it while she's at the top of it. Anyway, Pensive Chatter replies to all that. One of the things I tell parents about love is that love can be shown when you do something that is uncomfortable and or inconvenient to you, but benefits someone else, for example, their child, in the short or long run. Love does not mean just doing whatever makes you feel good right now. Self-love, then, is doing something uncomfortable and or inconvenient that benefits yourself in the long run. Fantastic advice also replies. Imagine challenging someone who is in an accident and relearning to walk. FA, are you just doing this to go up the body hierarchy? Patient in recovery, do you mean being able to walk again? Vampire Bassist also replies, okay, a number of problems with this. First, the body hierarchy is sustained by the same thing which sustains all the winged monkeys flying out of my unicorn's butt. Nothing, because it doesn't exist. There is no body hierarchy. No bodies are more or less valuable, but health is valuable because it is the thing which sustains priceless and irreplaceable human lives. All of them. Which I suppose brings me on to the real issue. Maintaining a healthy weight is not an act of self-love. It's just the default, the null state. When I perform self-love, it doesn't involve food at all. It involves romance novels and battery-operated devices of a personal nature. I assume she means her phone. But overeating is very much an act of self-hatred. It's the act of someone who sees no worth in themselves. Someone who is actively taking steps to shorten and darken their finite and sacred lot of life. What could possibly be more hateful to oneself? I know not. And note how this person's definition of rebellion is doing exactly what the marketing department of Nestle and Starbucks order them to do. Fudging fight the power, am I right? Nothing more rebellious than consuming poop because someone in a suit wants you to. Get in the basement brings us. If you only think thin women are attractive, and you only ever reblog images of thin women, or you only mostly do, maybe investigate that. Oh, so people aren't allowed to have types or aesthetic preferences? Of course we are. But when our types align as strongly with Western, imperialist, patriarchal ideals as traits like white or thin or young or feminine, then we should probably, dig into why we're attracted exclusively to one or more of those things. Some of that's very easy to answer. I'm straight, so I prefer feminine people. Is that a weird thing to say? That's not a criticism of anyone else's opinion. It's simply a statement about myself. There's nothing to dig into there. Except maybe scientific curiosity as to why some people are attracted to one thing and some people are attracted to another. They continue. In case it's, the inescapable patriarchal propaganda making us complicit in the punishment of women who deviate from those demands. How do I investigate that? Ask yourself questions when you find a thin woman attractive. What is it I'm attracted to about this woman, other than her thin body type? Ask yourself questions when your eyes slide over a fat woman with the same style or attitude of thin women you find attractive. What is it about her that makes her invisible to me? And what is it about her that awakens a feeling of negativity or disgust, or of camaraderie rather than attraction? I don't expect this post to change anybody's preferences or actions, and I'm not making it to shame anybody. I'm just exhausted by the relentlessness with which thinness is championed, and fat bodies are erased from existence, and particularly from desirability. And I'm tired of the fact that I have to notice it every second of every day, while most everybody else is free from thinking about it at all. #FATphobia is held to varying degrees for everyone but a fat woman. I'm making this post about women. #maybe expose yourself more to diverse body types and then we'll all calm down. #I'm just so tired. Probably from the overeating. Their hormones and cardiovascular system are probably not functioning well. #this is particularly painful when it's fellow queer people. #we deviate from the norm. We play with gender expectations, except when it comes to the expectation of thinness. Get in the basement, replies. Maybe expose yourself to more diverse body types and we'll all calm down. You're making the assumption that we haven't. I've worked with the public and I've seen a vast range of body types at work, and in real life on a regular basis, including within my own family. You're again making assumptions that others haven't already done the things that you're claiming they need to do. But I have a feeling OP is less talking about diversity and more about obesity, which has long since become incredibly prevalent and widespread in Western countries, and is now rising even in non-Western countries who have adopted more Western eating habits. They reply to the part that says, we'll all calm down. Original OP, you wrote this blurb because seeing images of random thin women on a microblogging platform triggered you, and instead of addressing and managing your own insecurities like an adult, you resort to guilt-tripping and chastising your mutuals instead. They reply to this part. This is particularly painful when it's fellow queer people. We deviate from the norm. We play with gender expectations, except when it comes to the expectation of thinness. I've previously mentioned the rampancy of Fatlogic with online sapphic and women-centric social media spaces, but I love how the original OP is framing other women having eyes and preferences that deviate from her body type as some kind of exclusionary moral failing on the part of other sapphic women that warrants a self-righteous lecture. I've seen the lesbian bi women aren't supposed to be attracted to bodies and have preferences. They're supposed to do better and be more accepting and only be attracted to other people's beautiful souls and personalities. Ooh. Talking point, and it's basically a warped sapphic edition of, hey, shallow Stacy, chasing after chads and jocks and give a chance to the awkward ugly guy you wouldn't normally consider instead. Ms. Beaver brings us. I encourage you to really think about the fact that 2/3 of this country's population is in a larger body, per the BMI scale. Think of the decades of public health interventions, medications, diets, and very intelligent researchers that have tried to eradicate fatness. And yet fatness still exists. Let's stop pathologizing it, criticizing it, treating it. Fatness isn't going anywhere. What if we celebrated that instead of trying to solve it? Sheep Herder Large replies, drug addiction will never go away either, so let's support that too. Radiant Surprise also replies, let's celebrate knee pain instead of treating it. It's not going anywhere, so it doesn't need to be solved. Awesomeness of Me replies, imagine if we'd applied this logic to smoking 60 years ago. How would things have gone? The original OP seems to be living in a bubble where nothing has changed in the last 100 years, except that people have gotten fatter. What they don't seem to realize is there are a lot of medical treatments to help people get rid of their addictions. For example, there are now nicotine patches in gum. The gum helped my dad a long time ago quit smoking, and thank God. He'd probably be dead by now if not for that. Naltrexone, I don't have any personal experience with it, but supposedly it can help people get over opioids and alcohol with about an 80% success rate. Much higher than 12-step programs. And for overeating, there are GLP-1s and other medications which have a high rate of success. Obviously, they're not working at a 80% success rate, but they're still very helpful. Sad clown with a big hot dog brings us. Sugar is poison. Sugar is your body's preferred fuel choice, and if you stop eating it entirely, you will die. They go on, but I want to cover that. Atkins and keto, maybe a lot of people don't like them because they sometimes don't have enough vegetables in them, but people have been, for years, going on a zero sugar diet, and it hasn't had any massive health effects despite all the fear-mongering that was going on when it first started to be promoted. So, what I'm saying here is they're either lying or ignorant. I'm not sure which. Anyway, they continue. But for real, when I see people claiming sugar addiction is this huge problem because when they stop eating sugar, their bodies start relentlessly craving it, I'm like, yeah. And the low fuel light on your dashboard means your car is addicted to gasoline. Like, do you fudging hear yourself? Another little aside. I think many people have a gut reaction that keto and Atkins are bad because they've been told throughout their whole life that they need to eat bread and crackers, and it needs to be the vast majority of their diet, or they will die. When in fact, that's not true at all. But it does make it cheaper to make food if everyone lives off bread and corn. So governments and corporations in general like it, because it saves a lot of money on production. So they continue, and then they go, but if I tough it out, eventually the cravings go away. That means I was addicted to sugar, and I just want to grab them and scream, the cravings go away because your body has deduced that you must be living through some sort of famine, and is diverting power to desperately attempt to keep your meat suit running by any means necessary, and that's not a good thing. Please believe me, there's absolutely no food you could possibly eat, bar actual life-threatening allergens and stuff that's gone bad, that could do more damage to you and your future descendants than spending significant amount of times in famine mode. You have officially started the slow process of starving yourself to death, and it will not save you from the horrors of being fat. And oh my god, stop treating your human body like a monster that must be tamed instead of a beautiful and complex organism that is doing its best to keep your dumb butt alive. And then they ignore me or give me some other flawed excuse as to why it's fine to never eat food, and I get to go back to shutting up while watching people I love destroying themselves for the sake of being skinny while imagining going full, redacted for legal reasons, on the nearest diet brand CEO or health food influencer. Okay, there's two things I want to talk about there. They at one point say that if you start going on keto or whatever, your body will divert power, and that's necessarily bad. That's exactly what you want when you're losing weight. You want your body to, instead of storing fat, to start using the fat for energy. Keto, not keto, any type of weight loss, that's what you want to happen. It seems like they're actually arguing pro-keto here, but they just don't realize it. Then they have this great line, why it's fine to never eat food. Anybody on a proper diet is eating food. Astronaut Empty replies to all that. Fun fact, your body doesn't have thoughts on its own. It's the brain that has thoughts. Your body doesn't deduce anything. Torquedo brings us. We trust our bodies to do so much for us, and we can also trust them to digest the food we eat and convert it into energy. We don't have to count calories or macros, just as we don't count the amount of breaths we take every hour. We trust our lungs will tell us when we need to breathe. But diet culture has us thinking we cannot trust our bodies to handle food. What can you do today to defy diet culture? How can you listen to hunger, cravings, and eat what you want? Yes, this can be so scary at first. Remember, your body knows what it's doing. Want more recovery resources? Check out the link in my bio to sign up for our monthly newsletter. Our bodies are so freaking smart. We can trust them to do so much for us, to keep us alive and functioning and living our lives. Think about it. You blink without thinking, breathe without much effort. Your heart is always pumping. We don't have to micromanage any of this. And you certainly don't have to micromanage food. Sweet Dianthus replies, lol, so dumb. Okay, extremely simplistic, because this is Reddit. And now YouTube. When you try to hold your breath, you will feel a pain panic that will push you to breathe out. When you ignore the pain, you could potentially pass out, though this is a really fudging hard point to get to. When you pass out, because your conscious mind was being effing stupid, Your breathing will regulate itself. When you eat too much, your stomach will hurt and you will feel poopy. If you ignore this signal and keep eating too much, you will eventually stretch the volume of your stomach. If you keep doing this over and over, you will no longer feel full at what was previously the normal amounts of volume, so the hunger versus fullness cues will change. These two things are similar in a sense, but also very different due to the differences in the cells that make up the structure of the stomach versus the lungs, and the signaling processes, nerve types, distribution, etc. Sometimes I wish everyone had to take biology and physiology classes. And when modern humans evolved, there was no such thing as the all-you-can-eat buffet or refined sugar, etc. There might have been a small all-you-can-eat buffet, woolly mammoths. The problem with them was you only had 2 or 3 days to eat the meat, and then you either had to do something to prepare it for long-term storage or risk getting very sick. Not to mention, at least in North America, there would have been wild cats fighting you for the meat pretty quickly. This was something posted in Absolutely Not Me in real life. I'm going to save money by making a sandwich at home instead of buying one for $12. Spends $47 buying stuff to make sandwich at home. Deadpoolio responds, man's adding 3 pounds of caviar on an entire loaf of sourdough using a starter from thousands of years ago. But seriously, some people need to learn how to shop. You don't need to buy an entire loaf of bread for every single sandwich and a new pack of meat for every single sandwich. Gaber brings us, you don't need a fit body. Humans have evolved for thousands of years, from nomadic hunter-gatherers to sedentary advanced civilizations. Today, we don't need to hunt a mammoth to survive. We go to the market for food instead. We don't need to walk a lot for that. We'd rather use a vehicle. We've learned to build warm houses. We have bathrooms. We've got comfortable resting places. We created the internet and phones, and we have everything at our disposal. That's the history of humanity. We went from lone wolves in the forest to smart humans living in community. Well, clearly they don't know much about the history of humanity if they think there was a point at which humans lived as lone wolves in the forest. As long as there have been humans, they've lived in communities. Even 100,000 years ago, it took a long time to raise a child. And you couldn't do it all by yourself, at least not safely. Anyway, they continue. And that means our genes and our bodies, over the past generations, have slowly been adapting to our great and comfy new lifestyles. Now, the reality is that, in almost all cases, you don't need a 10% body fat muscular body to accomplish your daily tasks. And if you're a woman, that would be extremely unhealthy, perhaps deadly. So that part is true. Even in the most physically demanding jobs, there is plenty of help from machines, and stuff to reduce your use of force. So that's what the human body has been genetically learning over the past centuries. There's no need to keep a lot of muscle that has no practical use. And we keep fat as a source of energy and insulation. So why is so persistent the idea of the fit body as the ideal for the human body? That's when fat liberation comes in. There is still a lot to do to dismantle fat phobia in our society, so keep in mind all the content and knowledge in this account. Every little action you make helps. Remember, Rome wasn't built in a day. Speaking of Rome wasn't built in a day, Finito replies, they do realize that genetically we are darn near identical to our ancestors from 1,000 years ago, right? This whole modern society is only a few centuries old. You could go back in time, 10,000 years, kidnap a baby and raise him in our times, and he'd still be just a regular person. Evolution doesn't happen in just a couple of centuries. It isn't Pokemon. Plus, fat, really. Fat keeps you warm. We have heaters. It helps you float better. We have life vests. No matter what slight advantage fat gives you, we have something that does it better without sacrificing your health to get it. Boxdrop brings us. Neither high temperature nor air quality indexes have reduced the number of folks jogging past my home this week. Heat stroke? Fine. Lung damage? No worries. Just like gym devotees who won't mask to avoid COVID. An N95 would do more for their health, but it's more about fat phobia and vanity. As far as I know, running outside gives your body a chance to produce vitamin D in sufficient quantities that you'll be more resistant to COVID than somebody who doesn't go outside and doesn't take vitamin D supplements, but whatever. Perfect Judge replies, can't walk without being out of breath after 20 feet? No problem. Can't sleep without a sleep apnea mask? Sure. Can't do many things because of your size? Sign me up. Sincerely, all the FA cultists. I can say 100% without a doubt, I run because I love the runner's high, the way my body feels afterward, how it improves other areas of my life for sports and endurance in general, plus mental health benefits, and yes, even the way I look because of it. We can't all be accepting of being obese and the number of preventable health issues they experience because of it. But surely they can be accepting of the body diversity they love to preach about being so important. Dorkita brings us. You may have significant knowledge about food and nutrition, and if that knowledge is used to beat up, control, or criticize your choices, it is intellectualized violence. They would probably have an argument if they just left it at beat up yourself, but obviously your knowledge should in some way control, as in guide, your decisions. Invisible Space Vamp replies, wait, I know how to make better food choices, but if I actually use that knowledge, it's considered violence? Clever girl I am replies, correct. Only against obese women though. Skinny ones don't count. Awkward Something brings us. So tired of being told my knee pain is because of my weight. I weigh 265 and my knees are both shredded from severe dislocations. My weight is not the problem. The problem is my tendons. Before I get into it, isn't the problem obviously both things? The weight, and he seems to have some genetic tendency for their knees to be dislocated? Vampire Bassist replies, how the heck do you dislocate both knees several times? Not to suggest this person's story is a load of poop, but that seems staggeringly unlikely. I mean, at that weight, you're not going to be doing a lot of contact sports, or climbing, or anything. Maybe American football. So how did it happen several times? Again, maybe American football. In which case they should see a competent doctor? Vampire continues, and if it did, surely you'd want to put as little stress on them as possible? I would. Significant End brings us. Listen, Lizzo is a great representation for fat people and all, but I'm sick of people saying this is a real woman and that real women don't look like thin celebrities, but I do. As if thin people aren't women. I'm sick of being made to feel like everyone hates me because I'm thin. It's so upsetting. Someone replies, wah wah, I'm thin like celebrities and the fat lady's oppressing me, wah. Get in the Basement replies, even when I was younger, I was never a fan of this. This is what real women look like positivity, because so much of it was mainly only in reference to fat women that otherwise fit conventional beauty standards. And even then, there is no single one-size-fits-all for what a real woman does or doesn't look like. Mavasi Mavo brings us. Can't express how stress-free being open-minded is. Some lesbians use he, him. Okay, cool. Some people have people inside their heads and sometimes it's fictional characters. Sick, your brain's like a pirate ship. They're all working to run. Some people like being treated like a pet dog. Bark, bark, bro. Being fat is unhealthy, but a perfectly normal type of body to have. Kind of beautiful how different we can all be. Something doesn't make any fudging sense? Cool, an opportunity to learn. And even if I can't figure it out, it's cool. We still have mysteries today. Unfortunately, the statistics and science do not back up that fat isn't unhealthy. It backs up that fat, excessive fat anyway, is a cause or contributor to many diseases. Basic Jury brings us. Why shouldn't we use the term obese? It's harmful to the fat community, used as a dehumanizing tool. War on obesity created painful trauma association. Obese is Latin obesus, derived from abido, I devour, eat away, used as an insult when trying to body shame individuals. Diagnosed based on racially motivated body mass index. Oppressive tool in medicine used to deny care. Let's explode the O word. I freaking hate the word obese or obesity. If saying this word makes you cringe internally, you're not alone, and that is a trauma response. Not trauma. Obesity is BS and the only diagnosis you can have while presenting with zero symptoms. This harmful category of humans maintains a body hierarchy steeped in white supremacy and ableism. This makes no sense, and let me explain why. If you jump out of an airplane without a parachute, you basically have no symptoms, right? Until you hit the ground. The same way with obesity. Sure, it doesn't instantly kill you, but eventually you're probably going to have some trouble. Just Here replies, racially motivated body mass index. They'd have a hoot if they ever took a second to Google things and learned that for us East Asians, the cutoff for overweight and obesity are even lower than for whites, with BMI 23 being overweight and already having a medically relevant incidence of metabolic diseases. But as always, the entire reality and existence of Asians is completely ignored in any of their arguments about how BMI is racist, because it directly contradicts all the BS they want to spout. Oh, they also conveniently ignore that Asia, and most of the non-Western world, is massively more fatphobic than the West is. It's insanely insulting how they just erase our entire existence from any discussion of minorities, because we disapprove all their convenient BS arguments. Starlight Amy brings us. I'm not sure if this person's trolling or not, but I'm going to read it anyway. I've been a plus-sized woman ever since I was a child, and trust me when I say those skinny girls are weak AF. Like, they can't lift poop, and a proof of that is, have you ever seen how fudging ticklish they always are? They literally have nothing protecting their nerves. Literally. Pick any skinny girl you know in your family and anyone you are friends with and try tickling them. They'll lose it and go into hysterics. Their bodies have zero defense. I have never been ticklish anywhere in my body, and they think having no layer of fat on your body is good when their nerves are so exposed like that? Ugh. So this person's actually bragging that they basically can't feel when someone touches them? Like, what the heck? What other pleasures are they missing out on? I thought this was interesting. This was a science alert. Scientists reveal the optimal number of daily steps to offset sitting down. It starts off, you've probably heard that adults should aim for 10,000 daily steps. This one-size-fits-all approach provides a clear message, though it doesn't consider how varied human lifestyles and bodies are. So, then we get to the end of the study. The team found between 9,000 and 10,000 daily steps were optimal to counteract a highly sedentary lifestyle, lowering incidence of cardiovascular disease risk by 21% and mortality risk by 39%. Regardless of participants' sedentary time, the researchers discovered that 50% of the benefits kicked in at around 4,000 to 4,500 daily steps. I don't know why a science article is trying to make something exciting out of the fact that the science supports the idea that about 10,000 steps is best for most people. I mean, I guess it's nice that there's proof now, but... And it's less than surprising that you get most of the benefits around 4,000 steps, because walking, like anything else, you expect diminishing returns. The first 1,000 steps is more important than the second 1,000 steps. And the third 1,000 steps is even less important until you get up to the 9,000 or 10,000 steps range where it becomes, maybe it's still important, but it's not very important. Thank you for watching that video. If you liked it, please click like and subscribe. If you really liked it, please consider becoming a member. For only $1 a month, you get early access to videos. For $3 a month, you get early access to videos and your name read out at the end of each video. And at $5 a month, you get one bonus short video every couple weeks. Speaking of members, special thanks go to Emmett McNally, Cupcake or Death, Wolf Child Rusk, Just a Girl, Maria P, Sringa H, Rue the Viewer, and Grey Warden Invasion. I wish all of you wonderful people a wonderful day.